Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of the NRDWave Podcast, where we're just going to talk about nerdy stuff that we like, whether it's comic books, TVs, not TVs, but TV, movies, etc., video games, whatever. I'm Kevin. I'll be your host as well as a contributor. And today we have Bobby as well as Jay. What's up, guys?
Hey.
Just living the dream, man. Just living the dream.
What is that dream?
It's not a very good dream, but it's a dream. It's like a 7 out of a 10 if we were to go on a scale.
And what about you, Jay?
My dream is to one day have a 90-inch Sony Bravia TV.
So we are going to talk about TV.
Okay.
That's what I was hoping.
Cool, perfect.
Those are
Perfect.
instructions.
So that's the subject of our first episode. It's what TV you would like in your future. How does that sound, guys?
I think we could do about 2 hours on that, I think, right?
We could cover a whole week's worth of material there. But in all actuality, we're going to be talking about our favorite, or what we think is the best Star Wars movies. We're going to be ranking them. Just the saga, the 9 movies. Since The Rise of Skywalker just came out, it's a little bit divisive. I wouldn't say quite as divisive as the last movie, but we'll see how we rank them. So I guess we should just start with the one we think is the worst, right, guys?
There's no chance that we have anything but one movie in this spot, right?
Well, let's find out. What do you guys got?
I have a tie.
A tie?
You can't have a
Okay.
tie. That's against the rules I just made
How
up.
does that work?
I'm breaking the rules again.
Let's hear your tie.
All right, what do you got? What do you got first?
All right, so tie for the last, for me personally, is Attack of the Clones and Last Jedi.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Do you want to go why you gave him a tie?
As a movie, full movie by itself, Last Jedi can actually stand alone. You know, if you look past whatever the divisiveness of that movie was created by a divisive man, it might be enjoyable if you look at it as not a Star Wars movie. Although Attack of the Clones is just cheesy and not well written and not well directed at all.
But what about if you really hate sand?
I mean, it is coarse and it gets everywhere. So, well, what did you have, Bobby? For I guess just give the last two since Jay did. So,
well, I didn't do it as a tie, but I do have the same movies. I have Attack of the Clones 9th and The Last Jedi 8th. What Jay said is exactly right. The Last Jedi it's a decent movie on its own. Like, if it was not Star Wars, like if it was like space battles, The Last Jedi,
it's just a knockoff.
That might be an okay movie. That might be a pretty good movie. But the fact that they ruined a lot of Star Wars lore, like, was really terrible for me. But Attack of the Clones, although it's a better Star Wars movie, it's such a bad movie, I can't put it anywhere but last.
Yeah, well, I think it is kind of interesting that all three of us had the same movies there. I had Attack of the Clones and The Last Jedi. I had Attack of the Clones worst, of course. I think it's the worst movie by far. And I hate The Last Jedi, so that tells you how bad Attack of the Clones is. But Jade, when you wrote it down, did you actually have Attack of the Clones at number 9? Like, was it the 9th one you wrote?
Oh yeah, what I did is I have it 1 through 9, and 8 is empty.
Oh, okay.
I
That's
see.
what
Okay.
I kind of figured.
But
They're
which
not
one
both
did you
tied for-
physically
they're both
write
tied for
last?
Physically wrote last was The Last Jedi.
Oh, okay. So we
Wow.
do differ a little bit. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's alphabetical, so I guess maybe that's why I did it. It could have been subconscious.
No, you don't have to go there. I mean, The Last Jedi is an awful movie. Just own it.
But, it's funny because, like, I was watching Attack of the Clones recently. Natalie Portman is a really, really good actress. And for some reason, in both this and then in Thor 1 and 2, she just doesn't have any chemistry with the love interest. And it's like it really takes you out of the movie. That's why I have it last. Like, her specifically, I don't know what it is about her in these movies. Like, probably the direction from George Lucas, but
obviously, yeah.
Just, it's bad. It's terrible.
Well, if I had to sum up both of those movies in, a sentence or two, I think Attack of the Clones is bad because nothing really happens, and The Last Jedi is bad because everything bad happens. It's just, it's the opposite ends of the spectrum. And it's crazy to think about, too, because Attack of the Clones has, like, hundreds of Jedi, and it should be cool, and it's just boring. The acting is really bad. There's that weird CGI battle scene, or like on the construction, the conveyor belt. That whole thing was just it's not interesting at all.
This is bad writing. It seems like it's for like a Star Trek episode on TV or something like that.
I think they leaned too much into the love story. First of all, second of all, it just seems like it has no soul. So it's a real problem every time I watch it, which admittedly I've still seen it 25 times or whatever, but I guess I'm a glutton for punishment. But it still is worse than The Last Jedi, despite all the offenses that The Last Jedi committed. It is at least a good looking movie, and it does attempt to do something interesting, even if it fails horribly.
It also has the lore of the Star Wars universe that it builds on, which is definitely a good thing for it. It doesn't have anything else to offer.
It does.
Sorry, for the Attack of the Clones.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm talking about. Sorry.
Yeah.
As far as being good looking, I guess at the time the CG was amazing, but still I think somehow it lost its magic with all the prequels, the lack of practical effects used in those movies, and just basically relying on CG.
Well, just for clarification, I was saying The Last Jedi is a good looking movie. Attack of the Clones is incredibly dated now. It looks like garbage for the most part.
It's really bad. Like they clearly used way too much green screen.
Yeah.
I think it was a cool new technology, not new technology, but it was up and coming as far as advancing, and they just relied on it too much. It's like, oh, look at my new toy, let's do this.
Right.
I've heard. It's funny because I've heard interviews where the actors they didn't have anything to work with, like they barely had anybody to bounce their acting off of, so that may be why it suffered so badly.
Yeah, it's like when you'd make a spaceship out of a cardboard box, and you're just pretending to press a button somewhere, and it doesn't look natural.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I've always complained about with the prequels in general is that they're just sanitized. They're soulless really is the best word for that whole trilogy, is because it doesn't look lived in. Everything looks fresh, everything looks clean. And I think that may be a limitation of the technology itself, or it could just be a limitation with whatever George Lucas's vision was. But I will say that this hurts me to put Attack of the Clones under The Last Jedi, because The Last Jedi I think is just so offensive. But I'm trying to disconnect myself from my Star Wars fanboyness.
As a fanboy, that movie was a slap in the face.
Exactly, it's exactly what you don't want from a Star Wars movie. But if I was someone who had never seen a Star Wars movie before, I might look at that movie like, okay, that was pretty interesting. There was some interesting stuff there, and there were some interesting themes. But at the same time, I also, if I had never seen anything of the Star Wars universe, I'd be very confused as to why Rey was so powerful. There's a lot of issues with that movie. So that's why it's definitely, at the very least, it has the light speed kamikaze, which that was really cool to look at.
Best part of the movie. Either that or Yoda coming in and using the lightning for some reason.
Yeah,
but either way, that was still cool.
Going back around to when Kevin was talking about how the universe of the prequels doesn't look lived in and looks really too clean, I kind of like that as kind of a contrast to the next three movies. It's before war, everything was beautiful, everything was fresh, clean.
That's
the ships are sleek.
It's also
the ships are
Republic.
Yeah, the ships are look like they're more sophisticated, but then after the next three, everything is gritty. Everything looks beat up. Everything looks lived in, like you said. And I think it adds something to the contrast of the times that the movies take place.
That's a good point. So I guess we'll see how much that affects the rest of our rankings. So maybe we move on to the next one. Bobby, what do you have at 7?
Well, it's funny you said earlier that one of the movies had nothing going on with Attack of the Clones, and then The Last Jedi had too much stuff going on.
Too much bad stuff.
Well, too much bad stuff, but it's The Phantom Menace actually seems to have both of those combined. It's right in the middle, but it's still not good in almost any way.
So you have that at 7.
I do have The Phantom Menace at 7. It's not good. It's almost like Attack of the Clones, but it has one or two big scenes that bring it up. Yeah. And it doesn't, again, it builds upon the lore of the Star Wars universe, and it does stuff that The Last Jedi didn't, which is why I have it above both of those movies.
Okay, and what about you, Jay?
For
What do you
me,
have
I
at 7?
have 7 is Rise of Skywalker.
Okay.
Just as far as, obviously,
Has that dropped for you since you saw it?
No, honestly, as far as, me being older, I'm obviously a fan of other movies in the Star Wars genre.
Mm-hmm.
But, as an all-around movie...
How old is he?
I'm so old.
Pretty old.
Pretty old.
Pretty old. But, it was a good attempt for me as trying to, rescue where the saga was going after the Last Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was too little too late. We've had discussions and arguments about this before. The story was, super convoluted, but still at the same time, it was very enjoyable and entertaining to watch.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, I think it was just too little too late. I don't know how Bobby has a Phantom Menace there.
Well, hold your horses, because guess what I have at 7? I have the Phantom Menace.
So I figured.
Bobby and I are perfectly aligned right now. This is a movie that I actually don't dislike at all. I recognize its shortcomings.
It's fun.
There's a lot of issues with it, and I think that we didn't really need to see young Anakin. But some notable standouts are obviously the Darth Maul versus Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon fight, which I think is the best lightsaber battle in the what is it? How do you say 9 trilogy? In the saga, that's the lazy way of saying it. Yeah, the nonology.
I would say it's the second best, but I think it's amazing.
But you're wrong. So, anyways,
I think it's very close to the top.
It's easy. What made it great is it was the first time we'd seen a double-bladed lightsaber. It's the first time we've seen a 2-on-1, and we've seen Jedi in their prime. We've seen a dark side user in his prime. Mm-hmm. It was incredible. So I will literally
chills even today to watch.
Yeah, and not only that, the score, Duel of the Fates, is such a great song, and incredible. John Williams kills it with that. But other notable things, I actually enjoy the pod racing. It goes on a little bit too long, but I think it's interesting, and again, it's something new we haven't seen. So I think that the nostalgia might take over for my like for this movie because it was so new, and I had grown up watching the original trilogy, and this was the first new Star Wars I get to see in theaters, and so there was a lot of hype, and I really enjoyed it for that.
It was the first fun duel. Because what we saw before was a lot of slow paced or heavy handed dueling. This was the first athletic, agile dueling that we had seen.
Right. Well, that's what I mean by these Force users being in their prime. It's a lot different than what we saw, and that also has to do with the change in filmmaking and audiences and all that. So I don't really take it as in my headcanon. I'm not saying that the Jedi back then were better just because what we see is different. Versus the two eras, but it is definitely flashy, and I actually really love this movie. But like I said, I understand its downfalls, and that's why I have it so low.
Yeah, I just think there's a lot of good Star Wars movies, and Phantom Menace isn't necessarily a good Star Wars movie, but it's fun. I'll watch that. I'll watch it over some of the movies that I have above it. It's just because of some of the scenes.
Just for the record, it's the second worst rated Star Wars movie ever on Rotten Tomatoes. Versus...
It's probably a 70 though, right? Or
no, it's in the 50s.
Or critic score?
Oh, wow.
Critic score. It's in the 50s.
Yeah, we all know that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. The worst one is Rise of Skywalker. So it has a 53%.
Wow.
On Rotten Tomatoes. The Rise of Skywalker. Did they remove the rating? 52%, so it beats it by 1%, which I think is a good segue into the next movie that I have, and that is The Rise of Skywalker. A lot of the same reasons that Jay said. It feels like it's trying to play catch up for the last movie.
Absolutely.
It feels like a bad series finale, like any bad series finale you've ever seen. This is that. What did you guys have at 6?
My number 6, I have Revenge of the Sith.
Okay. Let's rat them off just real quick, then we can discuss it.
So I actually have... this is probably going to get a little bit of heat. I have Return of the Jedi because I don't feel like there are some parts that are really cool, but I feel like not a lot happens this movie.
Don't make me cuss on the radio. Okay.
On the radio.
So Jay,
radio.
Why do you have Revenge of the Sith where you have it?
I have Revenge of the Sith where it is. I mean, honestly, from here on out, it's kind of hard for me to like. I like all these movies from here on out, like tremendously. So it's almost like ranking the best movies, with each other. Revenge of the Sith, for me, it was like a turning point in the saga, obviously, where you see the finally fruition of, Anakin succumbing to the dark side and becoming, the most known villain of all time in any cinema history or any history at all. And Obi-Wan really comes into his own in this one too. It's like I feel like we see Obi-Wan confident in who he is, obviously in his beliefs and his abilities and his skills and everything. So that's for me. Like I said, from here on out, I love all these movies, and it's kind of hard for me to put them in an order.
It's just kind of nitpicking at this point.
Spoiler alert.
Okay. I hate all the rest of my movies, just so you know.
Yeah, you hate them, but you recognize they're actually good. That's why you rank them this way.
My favorite movies are actually Attack of the Clones, Last Jedi, and Phantom Menace.
Okay, good choices. So, Bobby, you had Return of the Jedi here. You'll have to explain yourself.
Yeah. Okay. So, for one thing, one of my favorite characters is Boba Fett. I know Jay's gonna just scoff right now, but Boba Fett is such a cool character. Like, he got reprimanded by Darth Vader and just kind of like, I don't know. It's just he had this aura or this aura around him, around him that was just like cool. Like he had the jetpack, he had the cool gun, he was a bounty hunter, and then they killed him off like accidentally. Like I don't know what they were trying to do, but they made him look like an absolute fool, and that's how they started off the movie. And then not a lot happens for about an hour. Like going to Endor, there was a couple of chase scenes that were kind of boring. Han Solo's boring. He clearly didn't want to be in the movie.
The chase scenes were boring?
Kind of.
Like, I think you need to watch it again.
I watched it recently. I didn't. It wasn't doing anything for me. And then finally, when Luke goes on board the Death Star, that's when the movie was at its best. But there wasn't a lot helping it. That movie gets worse with each rewatch, in my opinion.
Jesus.
Yeah.
I'm sad. I'm sad for you.
It used to be my favorite as a kid. I loved it. I loved like the Ewoks. I loved it all. And then
what happened to that child?
I think The Last Jedi killed me. I'm not really sure.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I kind of already summed up my choice with it feels like a bad series finale. It feels incredibly rushed, and I get why, because like Jay said, they were trying to make up for The Last Jedi. It just kind of, there's a lot of freaking issues with it, and I think the ending of this movie sort of tells me that the rest of this trilogy should not have been made at all, because it negates the original trilogy almost 100%.
Right.
So I don't want to say that I hate this movie, because I would have put it last if I did, but it's one of those movies that I would watch sort of like Spider-Man 3, where it's really dumb and it's not good, but at least it's entertaining on a Saturday afternoon. Like it'll give me something to do. Please don't compare
those.
Yeah,
please
don't
compare
those movies. That play the same movies every weekend.
Trust me, it is on that level, and it will not hold up to 10 years down the road. People are going to look at this like Attack of the Clones. It is as a movie. It doesn't hold up. As a Star Wars movie, it doesn't hold up. It's just not very good.
I have a lot more to say, but I'm not at that pick yet, so I'll let you know once I get to that point.
Well, we can debate that when that comes to your choice, or when you have that on your ranking. But yeah, I just think that it has a lot of lore issues like The Last Jedi, because it has to basically it has to do a U-turn on shit, and it just doesn't work. So I do not like that movie really. I think it's so average. I know I gave it like a C when we first saw it. And I think that is still the case, because I still have such a soft spot in my heart for Star Wars movies in general. Right. And I will watch it multiple times. I've seen The Last Jedi 10 times. So it's just along those lines where it's almost painful to watch.
And I don't know, it's kind of funny because I've seen Last Jedi like maybe 1.5 times. I don't know if I'm qualified to argue about it, but
I've seen more reviews of it than I've actually seen it. But like I've literally watched Mahler has like a review series on it. I think I watched like 6 hours of his review on it, like 2 or 3 times because it's so in depth and so good. It's just crazy, like how I've seen it twice, The Last Jedi now, and it's just it's bad.
Where The Last Jedi fails is on Star Wars content. Where Rise of Skywalker fails is on movie construction basis. Yeah. Like I said, it's incredibly rushed. It feels stitched together. It's a mess.
It's everything thrown in at once.
Yeah. They just threw everything at the wall and tried to figure out what would stick. And you could tell there one major piece of evidence of that is the fact that Finn was like, "I got to tell you something, Rey," and then never gets a chance to. They started that story thread and then never finished it. And then off screen, we hear that he was going to tell her that he was a Force user. Then we find out, or that he was Force sensitive, and then we find out that he was originally supposed to open the hatch on that Death Star using the Force. Star Destroyer using the Force rather than BB-8 doing it. Like, just why bother doing that? They were just trying to throw as much as they could at this movie, and it feels like it was almost just supposed to be a distraction from the last movie. Like, hey, don't look over there anymore. This is what you really want to watch, because we got all this cool stuff going on, and we got horses. Why?
Space horses again.
The space horses.
Space horses.
The only reason for them having that was so that they could say, we can't jam the speeders. Why not? And then the fucking hatch opens up and they run off there. It's like, why didn't you just park closer and just run out? Like, it doesn't make any sense. That may be a nitpick, but it just doesn't make sense.
Well, since we're already deep into this talk, we might as well go into the next one, which for me is Rise of Skywalker.
Okay, so we're pretty close.
We weren't far off. I think we just went off there. So they might as well call this movie The Rise of Convenience, because everything they do is just like they stumble into fortunate luck. Like when they're in the sand sinking, when he yells out, "Rey, I have something to tell you." And then they fall into the pit where they happen to find the dagger that they needed. Exactly. In the one spot. Like, how did they know it was there? Right. And then they went and got the ship, which hadn't been stolen. Right. It was a lot like how Han's ship, the Millennium Falcon, hadn't been stolen in The Force Awakens. Like,
it was stolen.
Well,
that's why it was there.
It was sitting there, but why did nobody take it from that spot? I guess
because it's a hunk of junk.
Yeah.
Duh, Bobby.
It's like a little Mustang sitting in the driveway.
Exactly. Nobody wants it.
For about 3 years, Jay?
and if they took it, they would have to bypass the compressor. Like, nobody wants to do that.
That's hard.
That's true.
It took Ray 2 minutes to do it, but it's hard for anyone else.
It's hard for other people. I get it.
Yeah.
For non-Mary Sue's.
To expand on that, Bobby, then like immediately after that, spoiler alert, when Chewie quote unquote dies.
It was another ship.
Exactly. Like, conveniently he's still alive and he's on the ship that happens to be over the planet that you're on. Like, okay, like it's just, you're right. It is very everyone's wearing plot armor in this freaking movie.
It's like season 8 of Game of Thrones, so it is. But the thing is, all that stuff aside, like I know it's like the stuff with Palpatine makes no sense. It invalidates the first 6 movies. It's enjoyable to watch.
There's
a lot of fan service.
True. Yeah, this may be an unpopular opinion, but I actually didn't mind a lot of the Emperor stuff. I felt like there needed to be something tying the rest of the movies together, and he is an obvious way to do that. Did he necessarily need to be resurrected in whatever form he was resurrected in? Maybe not. It could have been a recording or some sort of artifact, because we do know that dark side users can possess certain artifacts like a holocron or even a helmet or whatever. They could have done something like that instead, and it could have been manipulating Ren through some sort of force aspect rather than a physical being of himself.
Or what do you think of even like the opposite of a force ghost, like a Sith ghost or something like that?
They can't do that. Dark side users can't do that. That's the whole point.
They're making up stuff for these last 2 movies. They could have made something up.
But thematically, that's a problem, because
And that's been canon for a while too. They're not going to go back and redo that.
well, they could retcon, but it wouldn't work in terms of the themes of light versus dark, because the whole point of light versus dark is that it's very much a Christianity allegory, where if you follow the light side, you will be granted eternal life, and that's what a Force Ghost is. It's eternal life. You followed the right path, you died with honor, and you are allowed to live on without your body. Whereas dark side users who took the wrong path, their death is very finite, and that's why they're obsessed with immortality. That's why Palpatine was so obsessed with cloning, because he wanted to be able to transfer his essence into a new body, which I don't know what the official word is on this movie, but that seems to be what he did. So yeah, that's basically why it makes sense to have Palpatine possess an item rather than actually being physically alive, because they're almost like unintelligent ghosts. I don't know how familiar you are with paranormal, but like the theory about there's ghosts that exist that just replay the same thing over and over again. They don't know they're dead. It would be kind of like that, and we have seen that in expanded universe stuff. So that's what I would have liked better than actually having Palpatine back.
Let me ask you a question though. Wouldn't it be interesting though if he, like being like one of the biggest Siths of all time, wouldn't that be interesting if he found a way to cheat the system and come back as a Sith ghost, if that's what you want to call it?
Well,
or, I guess that's what I would call it. But like, wouldn't that be kind of interesting if like these are how the rules are set up, and then he found a way somehow to come back and try and, like, you know, get Kylo Ren to do what he wanted as something that he shouldn't have been able to do.
Well, Bobby, let me ask you a question. Have you ever heard of the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
A time or two.
It's ironic.
I have. I've read it. It's really good.
Okay, so basically that's the explanation as to why he's able to do it. He basically learned how to keep himself alive through Plagueis' teaching. So he is the first to essentially figure out how to do that Force essence transfer. So in a way, he figured out how to live longer, but he can't exist outside of a body. So that's the downfall of the Sith.
Okay.
So that's, I think that the way, I don't think that should be changed at all in the Star Wars universe. I think that that's something that's been very prevalent. So I would not like what you're proposing, but that's just me.
I second.
I mean,
opinion.
did you like
that?
a lot of that movie anyway?
Huh?
Did you like a lot of that movie anyway?
Rise of Skywalker?
Yeah.
Well, like I said, I would have wished that it was less of an actual Palpatine in it. And I think that Ren should have been the bad guy instead
I think
of
Rey should have been the bad guy.
Well, that's a whole other discussion. That's a huge can of worms that we'd be opening there.
To that point of changing Star Wars lore and changing, canon, just for the sake of making one movie more likable or more conducive or confluent to the rest of the series, I wouldn't want that at all. You got 8 other movies that stick to it, and just for the sake of one movie to make a plot point stick better, I wouldn't like that. I would think it was just kind of like a betrayal
Like a
of
cop-out
something that's
kind
been
of?
established. Yeah, it's a cop out, an easy way out.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's like
that's
get
fair
out of
enough.
jail free card kind of thing.
Yeah.
All right, so
Like
then,
we didn't know where to go from here, so let's just do this easy, simple thing.
Well, I think we talked enough shit about Rise of Skywalker for the time being. So that was number 6, right? So what do you guys have at 5?
that was my number 5.
It's Bobby's number 5.
Oh, that was your 5. Okay, so what was your 5, Jay?
My number 5 is The Phantom Menace.
Okay.
This is where I'm gonna completely disagree with Bobby about his ranking for this movie, but in all good. For me, Phantom Menace. I mean, it had been a while since we'd seen any Star Wars movie, and like I said, it's just something about it being the first one we got to see in theaters. I remember staying up till midnight, actually seeing a midnight showing with my aunt and uncle at Edwards Cinema in Simi Valley.
Shout out. Don't tell them where we live.
They don't exist anymore.
We're gonna get hate mail now.
We're the real broses.
I'm straight up not having a good time.
Another shout out to those guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, for me, I think that movie was cool because I mean, you had a lot of complex characters that I wish we got to see more of. Qui-Gon Jinn, Darth Maul, a lot of the original Council of the Jedi. We could have done, like you guys said, we could have done without seeing a young Anakin. I think that was just a bad direction on someone's part. but also you get to see the dichotomy of light and dark there between that especially in that fight, that lightsaber duel with Qui-Gon Jinn and Darth Maul. You see Qui-Gon Jinn waiting patiently behind that laser field, while Darth Maul's frustrated and ready to go and chomping at the bit, and Qui-Gon Jinn's just I'm gonna meditate.
He's rabid.
Yeah, and I'm gonna meditate, and that's what I'm gonna do, and I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm ready for you as soon as he opens up. Like that duel, I think it's just that duel does it all for me, because you see the characters of both, you see the actual character of both those characters, and it was just, like I said, I wish we got to see more of Qui-Gon Jinn. If there's any kind of Obi-Wan story that comes out on Disney Plus, if they have flashbacks to where Qui-Gon's training him, and I think I would be very happy to see that. And then with Darth Maul, obviously, and then more canon in Attack of the Clones, Clone Wars, and Rebels, we get to see a lot more of Darth Maul, and then even in some of the extended universe movies.
And
at the
end of Solo, that's really cool having him back.
And then, even in the future, obviously in Rebels, I think we're going to see a lot more of Darth Maul, which I'm really excited for. But to see Ray Park, not to see Ray Park as him, is going to be kind of sad.
Shots fired.
But yeah, that's my take on Phantom Menace. Pod racing scene was cool, like you said. It was.
Now this is pod racing.
A lot of it was kind of cheesy, but we hadn't seen anything like that before, obviously. I think that's where the CG actually came into its own for that whole series.
That's where it's the most convincing in that movie for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Have we not mentioned Jar Jar at all?
Bobby, God damn it, you ruined it. I thought we made a pact. Never mention him. It's all about Babu Frick now.
Babu Frick.
Just kidding. I actually liked Babu Frick. Anyways, great. So my number 5. So I think I differ with Jay on this one by one spot. I think I have Revenge of the Sith here. You had it at 6, right, Jay?
Yeah.
And have we talked about it for you yet, Bobby?
I have not brought it up.
Okay, figures. So ironically, this movie I feel like has a very similar structure to the Phantom Menace in terms of there's a lot of nothingness happening in the first part of the movie. Besides, there's a really great opening scene that was actually supposed to be longer than that, and it takes up about half hour of the movie. That's really cool. After that, there's really a lot of long, boring scenes that happen. But like Jay said, this is a movie that really has Obi-Wan shine. He's an easy standout to this. So that's one step above Phantom Menace, easy right there. Similarly, ends with a pretty good lightsaber battle as well. I think that this also goes on a little bit too long.
Battle.
I disagree, because I think it's too long. If they would have shortened it by maybe 3-4 minutes, it would have been a lot more effective.
They were building to that though for 3 movies.
Yeah, very true, but that doesn't necessarily make it better, or better to draw it out for so long. You know what I mean? It doesn't make the physical scene being longer any better. The fact that it was a build-up, because really the payoff is Anakin being beaten, and then donning the Darth Vader mask finally, which is for me the best part of the movie, which is unfortunately the very end of the movie. It's the last scene essentially where we get to see that, and that even today, even after seeing that movie so many times and it being 15 years old, it still gives me chills seeing Darth Vader for the first time, and when he lets out that breath right when the mask seals. That's epic filmmaking, and that's what George Lucas is honestly capable of. Just the visual grandeur of that scene it's really, really cool.
That's his strength, I think, obviously. Is
exactly. Yeah. Well, not only that, just his world building aspect of it, but him directing characters is clearly weak in here, and I think that Ewan McGregor's acting is really what overcomes. I don't think that George Lucas got any better between Attack of the Clones and this movie, and we can tell because Hayden Christensen. Hayden's actually better in this movie. He is. He's definitely better in this movie, but not leaps and bounds like Obi-Wan is.
I think
Ewan McGregor
is really good in Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, by all accounts, George Lucas really just lets people do what they want on screen. He'll just say, okay, here's the screen, or here's the scene, go ahead and do it. And so I think between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, you see Ewan McGregor start to really become Obi-Wan on his own. I don't think that's directed in any way. And he's just amazing. And I'm super excited for the Obi-Wan TV series because of this movie. So yeah, I hold this one, even though it's at 5, which seems like it's low. It really isn't. I think it's one of, I really like this movie a lot.
Right.
And like I've established, I am definitely a fanboy. I can recognize its faults, but I watched this movie, a week ago and watched it probably 2 months before that. Like I'm obsessed with these freaking movies. I have a problem, guys.
It's a good
Please
watch because it's the culmination of not only the first 2 movies of the series, but then the original series. It all ties together, and it's amazing to see it all come together like that.
Like I said, it's the turning point. It's the turning point.
Yeah.
Where some, obviously.
And sorry to cut you off, but
no, go ahead.
Nobody mentioned this yet. At least I don't think so. But the fact that this is essentially the Empire Strikes Back of the original trilogy. Mm-hmm. I mean, of the prequel trilogy, because it ends on a bad note for the good guys. That the good guys lose in this movie, and I'm sure that somebody's pointed this out before, but I've never actually heard anybody say that. I just kind of realized it right now that it's literally the good guys lose and the bad guys win. And I think that always makes for a great ending. And I don't think it would have been as good if this was just a standalone movie and this was the last one we ever got and there was nothing after it chronologically. But the fact that A New Hope and the other movies in between exist makes this such a cool bridge to the to the next era.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm giving this movie a lot of props, and I feel like I kind of feel bad that it's so low, but everything else is better.
Well, to that effect,
to me.
If you look at almost like every other movie from the first 2 trilogies, almost every other movie ends on a sour note, ends bad for the good guys, and the bad guys are on top. But then you get to this final trilogy, and it kind of like shakes that order up, and I think that's kind of where this final trilogy is kind of missing something too.
Well, I don't know, because The Last Jedi, like it sort of ended on a good note, but like the rebellion or whatever they were calling themselves at this point, they were still like nobody came to help them, and there was like a few dozen of them. Like, it's funny because none of us really had any idea where The Last Jedi was going to go from the end of that movie, because so many storylines had been broken or cut off. I don't think that, I think that the ending for The Last Jedi wasn't a good ending. I think, they were talking about hope and stuff like that, but they were screwed. They were absolutely screwed from my perspective.
Yeah, and I also want to bring one thing, going back to the final lightsaber duel in Revenge of the Sith.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to bring up actually a scene from Rebels where Obi-Wan actually ends up fighting Darth Maul again in in Twin Suns episode. It's almost a
spoilers for Bobby.
Spoilers for Bobby. It's almost he's had plenty of time.
Yeah.
I'm a fake nerd.
It's the complete opposite of that lightsaber battle.
So
and
Obi-Wan's fighting the red guy?
Amazing. Yeah, Obi-Wan's fighting the red guy.
Oh, the red guy. Okay.
And the battle actually only takes about 2 seconds, and it's like you first hear about that it only takes 2 seconds. You're kind of disappointed, but when you see it, you're like, that would fit perfectly.
Exactly.
It's poetic and
it's somber.
It's somber, yeah. And then even Obi-Wan sits there and holds the red guy while he dies, and then the red guy's finally almost at peace, and then Obi-Wan's there to help him pass to the other side. And
who's this red guy? Is he related to Darth Maul?
I don't know.
Yeah, sort of. He kind of is.
Yeah.
You can tell that they're the same species. Yeah, that's a really good point. That scene is very well done, and it's actually really sad.
That sounds like it subverts expectations in a good way.
Yeah, in a good way.
Really
yeah,
does.
Because you think oh, here comes this epic duel, and it's old man Obi-Wan. It's Alec Guinness, and he just he puts down Maul in a second or two,
Wow.
and Maul, as he's dying, because there's a very long story behind this, but basically Maul hates the Sith at this point, and he's looking for the Chosen One that will destroy the Sith. He finds out that the Chosen One may be on Tatooine, and that's why he's there. That's why he meets up with Obi-Wan again. So as Maul's dying, he says, "Is he the Chosen One?" referring to Luke.
Yeah.
Obi-Wan just nods, and then Maul dies in his arms.
Just now. I got chills just now.
That's
It's
awesome.
it's so well done, and it's so much. Like, obviously, an action scene is awesome from time to time. Well, a lot of the times, probably a majority. But there's some few times where it's like, oh, it's really cool to see something done a little bit differently, where it's not just this CGI fest, and it's something that's more emotional and poignant. So yeah, that's a really good point, Jay. It's awesome.
In a segue, that kind of reminds me of one of the few best, or one of the few good parts of Black Panther to me, which is almost like the climax when he's holding Killmonger and he's dying and he's talking about like the ships from Africa.
Yeah.
And like throw me in the ocean with my ancestors. Like, so like I definitely get what you're talking about. Like I think it's better to have something that's emotional rather than just like exciting and fun. Sometimes.
Again, because it can be perceived as sanitary. So yeah, that was a really good point, Jay. Okay, let's move on.
But actually, what is Jay's? Did we get Jay's number 5 pick?
Yeah, it was Phantom Menace.
Oh, Phantom. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. So we're moving on to 4. Let's start with Jay again. What do you got there?
My number 4 is Force Awakens. Okay. I thought not obviously, but it'd been a while since we gotten a live Star Wars movie. Obviously, I think how many years was it between?
What was it?
I think 10. It was
10?
Came out in 15, right?
Yeah, about 10 years.
I think Revenge of the Sith came out in 2005, right?
Yeah,
2005. Yeah.
So we're all older, and our expectations are, obviously pretty high. And I thought they did a pretty good job. I mean, even though it has everyone's argument of why it wasn't good is because it seems like the New Hope all over again. But I like that. I don't know. You just like, for me, I think why it was so good is more along the lines of nostalgia factor of me getting to see another new Star Wars movie in the theater again. You felt the magic of New Hope again, like I said, and at the end, you weren't disappointed. It was a good movie. It fit in the Star Wars lore. Everything was everything flowed. Everything was contiguous with what had happened. As far as lore and story, you're kind of left wondering, who is this Rey? Why does she have the Force? Where does she come from? You got to see Han Solo. You got to see Chewie. You got to see Leia. R2 and C-3PO are back, and a lot of cool new characters. And then even with the cool new characters, you get questions about who are these guys? There's Poe and Finn.
Foe. Let's just call him Foe from now on. They're just one
from
being.
now on. Yeah,
Poe and
one
Finn.
being. And you were left wanting more at the end of that. And then, you were excited to see what's going to happen next. Little do you know that we were going to be super disappointed and sad.
Yeah. That's a good point. Well, because I actually have this movie in the same spot. I have The Force Awakens at number 4. After the letdown of the prequel trilogy, despite it ending on a relatively high note, it was a similar feeling where you're like, cool, a new movie. Let's see if they can do it right this time. And I think overall they did. I actually like when the Star Wars logo comes out at the very start of every movie, I kind of welled up a little bit because I was like, the anticipation was so strong. And I think that they delivered for the most part, even though it is a rehash of a lot of the same stuff that we did see in A New Hope and some stuff from Empire. I think it was a necessary tactic because they needed to get fans interested in this, or else nobody would really respect it. So yeah, lots of good things in this movie. I thought Rey, Finn, and Poe were really good additions. I thought they were all interesting. They had interesting backstories. Even though we didn't know much about Rey, she was really charming.
Oh yeah.
And then seeing Leia on screen again, and Han Solo and Chewbacca and C-3PO and R2-D2 all on screen again was pretty mind blowing, to be honest. Because you never, like, I remember when I was a kid, and I remember I was like 15 years old, and I was like, oh, I think that's when like the new trilogy, the prequel trilogy was starting. around that time. Or no, that was like when Attack of the Clones came out. And I remember thinking, I wonder if George Lucas will do a 9 or a 7, 8, 9. And I was like, well, by then I won't even care. I'll be in my 30s. And then lo and behold, exactly.
You care even more now. Yeah,
I'm in my late 20s and I'm more passionate about it than ever.
Oh.
Yeah, it's literally one of the reasons that we even started this endeavor on NRDWave.
I too am in my late 20s.
I'm not in my late 20s now. I mean, when Force Awakens came out, I'm older now. But yeah, it brought back a lot of really effective nostalgic memories of the Star Wars universe, and made me really just crave more. So I respect this movie a bunch. What do you have here, Bobby?
We did it, boys. We got all three of us with the same pick. I got
Is that the first
Awakens
time?
Here. Yeah, I think first one here. Force Awakens, like it's something I'll watch probably every 3 to 6 months, whatever. But whenever it's on, like I think it starts out a little bit slow, but like it's a fun movie. Like they are going back to A New Hope, but I think that's a good thing, like you said, because it brings me back to when I was a kid and watching that movie and the reasons why I love Star Wars.
Yeah, it sort of like it takes the bad taste out of your mouth from the prequel trilogy.
Yeah.
It's a palate cleanser.
No, absolutely. And it's like, they were really safe with it, but they also opened a lot of new threads, like, because I did want to know about Rey's parents. I did want to know about Snoke. What I thought would have been really cool is if Finn was actually a Jedi. I thought, like, the fact that he was a stormtrooper, and then if he'd become a Jedi, which obviously didn't happen, but that's something that, like, I had thought about.
But Bobby, he had something to tell Rey.
He did have something to tell Rey. I thought it was that he loved her, but I guess he just gave up on that halfway through that movie.
No, he loved Rose.
He loved Rose Poe.
Oh man, but it's just like the climax of that movie is actually one of my favorite like scenes in Star Wars. Like when Finn is standing up to Kylo, like that scene is awesome. And then like when Rey fights him, like when the lightsaber gets stopped, I actually thought it was Luke coming in to save the day, which obviously it didn't. But it's like I was on the edge of my seat watching. I'm like, holy shit, Luke's here. Oh no, it's Rey, which is still really cool because then she had that dope fight with Kylo. But like everything with Han being killed by his son, just all the emotion, just it wasn't breaking new ground, but it was setting up to go forward. Unfortunately, they fumbled all that.
Well, yeah.
But they had some great groundwork for the future.
Yeah, I mean, as far as, and this, I want to say, I like fan service once in a while, but this movie really doesn't have a lot of fan service. I'm trying to say, like you said, it didn't break ground.
Doesn't it, though?
I don't know. Honestly, I would think they kind of went complete opposite of what maybe our expectations were. We were expecting to see Luke,
Yeah, we were. That's true.
We weren't expecting to see Han die. At the same time, they introduced a lot of cool new characters and concepts, but we get screwed in the rest of the trilogy with those same characters. Like Phasma, I mean, they make her awesome.
Phasma.
Phasma really is the modern day Boba Fett. Like
and it's funny how they knew what happened with Boba Fett, but they still did the same thing. How?
Yeah, they give her armor made out of a Naboo starfighter or Naboo.
It's actually Palpatine's.
Palpatine's, yeah. What was it? The Executor?
No, the Executor is a Star Destroyer. It's just his Nubian transport.
It had a name. I forgot what it was. And then also the Knights of Ren, which were a huge letdown, and Rise of Skywalker. They have all these cool concepts and stuff in there that just fall short in the rest of the trilogy.
Like besides like a Marvel movie, like because Marvel movies, I was always thinking what's next. I've never talked about what's next for the next movie more than going from The Force Awakens into the Last Jedi. Like we talked about it for months and months and years. Like just thinking what could happen. Like who was Rey a Kenobi? Like was Rey a Skywalker? Was she a Palpatine? Like all these different things, and there was so much hope in what was coming.
There was a new hope.
Oh man!
Come on,
got him.
Come on, laugh. Thank you.
What are you, Jeb Bush?
Please clap.
Please laugh.
Oh man. Yeah. It was. I think it was a really good start, and added a lot of really cool story threads that were exciting. And unfortunately, thanks to The Last Jedi, those were all pretty much abandoned. But yeah, Force Awakens. I think Bobby put it best, probably safe but good.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why I have it here. And it was really cool seeing him return to more practical effects, rely less on CGI. That was really great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was awesome.
that's
That's what I loved about the new trilogy. Is a lot of
Yeah.
practical effects. All the aliens, most of the aliens are actually, people in suits designed by people, sculpted by people.
Exactly.
And it was that's to me that's amazing. We don't see enough of that in movies anymore.
Really don't.
Mhm. Absolutely. All right,
Okay.
so moving on to number 3, if you don't mind me going first. You guys have already gone with this, and I've been waiting with some of my points. Revenge of the Sith. I obviously have it a lot higher than both of you guys, but
I'm gonna predict the amount of shock in our comment section once this video goes up.
Yeah,
They're gonna be like, Bobby's a freaking idiot.
yeah, especially with the Boba Fett.
He's a
talk
Babu
earlier.
freaking idiot.
Get out. Get out right now.
Okay, all right, guys. I'm signing out. See you later. Peace.
So when that movie came out, I was about 15 years old, and it was one of the first. It was the first Star Wars movie I had seen, like the first new Star Wars movie I had seen in theaters. And just like being able to go, I went with you, Kevin, and we watched it, the opening night, or I guess the next night, whatever it was. But it was amazing. Like I got to see it on the big screen, for the first time with my friends. And one of the things I actually really like about it, it is slow, but it's a slow burn. Like everything from the previous 2 movies had culminated into this movie, and like you see, it's not the best acting, but I honestly feel like it's realistic, like the way that like a pouty teenager would act, or I guess into his early 20s in this one. Like I feel like it was really realistic, and I feel like everything culminating to this point was done really well as far as the actual story. The execution, of course, is lacking in a lot of the prequel stuff, but I feel like this part, or like his descent into darkness, I feel like they did really well, and it made a lot of sense. And then of course it culminated with a fight between Obi-Wan and Anakin, and I loved it. It's one of my favorite parts about Star Wars.
See, I actually disagree with you a little bit on
Descent to
Anakin's
Darkness?
descent. Yeah, I don't think it's done well really at all.
I think it's too fast.
It's really abrupt.
Well, you have to think about it from like the last movie. Remember when he went to save his mom, and he had to all the job
So
Kills them all.
So one thing happens, and then he's on the dark side.
Well,
It could have been stretched out. I think more of the second movie could have been used.
Yeah.
For
I think-
his
We should have seen
into-
more of the relationship between Obi-Wan and Anakin, as well as his descent. Maybe him starting to bend rules, because he really does follow a lot of the rules to a T. He's even asked to spy on Palpatine, and he's like, "Oh, I don't really like this," but he does it anyways.
He's conflicted though. You can tell he's conflicted.
True,
with a
but
lot of that stuff,
he
though.
doesn't ever really disobey. Obviously there's small stuff, but he never really disobeys Obi-Wan or the Jedi Council. He does as he's told, and then all of a sudden there's like this quick left turn to where, oh, now I'm gonna murder younglings. Like it isn't. It is very abrupt, but I will say that if you do watch the Clone Wars series, it kind of fixes that. It really does, because you see him do that kind of stuff where he maybe uses the Force inappropriately to interrogate somebody, or he kills somebody that he maybe could have arrested, or so you see that kind of stuff, and it retroactively fixes a lot of my issues with Revenge of the Sith. So I definitely do recommend that to you, Bobby. I think you should watch it, because I think if you think it's good in Revenge of the Sith as it is, you'll probably love it even more after watching the Clone Wars.
I don't think it's perfect or anything like that, but I think,
of course, but you have it
think
number 3.
They lay the groundwork for it through the first, or not really the first one, but from the second movie into the third. Like he's very resistant to a lot of the stuff that he's being told, and then after he loses his mom, after all the nightmares, you can tell like he won't let that happen for Padme. And so, like, you can tell that he's willing to do anything. It is kind of abrupt in one sense, but just knowing his motivation and knowing that he'll do anything to keep Padme alive, I understand it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, of course, it wasn't perfect, but I think it was done pretty well. Better than most people give it credit for.
Yeah, it's definitely not out of nowhere, but it could have been expanded on. So I hear you.
Yeah, a better writers could have done more with it. That's for sure.
True. Yeah.
What's with Skywalker's dying of sadness too? I don't understand
that.
Life's hard, man.
It wasn't a tradition until The Last Jedi. So.
Are you minimizing their struggles?
All right, so what do you guys have at 3?
Go ahead, Jay.
For me, it's got A New Hope. A New Hope at 3.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, these last 3, obviously the original trilogy, are going to be my top 3. And it's really hard to rank them, so you can only rank them based by quality of actual movie, not based on content. I don't know. I think you know what I'm trying to say.
Believe in yourself, Jay.
But like New Hope was something the world had never seen before, like completely something brand new. Mm-hmm. Anytime someone did like any kind of spaceship or star movie or space movie, it was cheesy. No one could take it seriously.
Like
it wasn't written well. Flash Gordon, all the original like 50s and movies. Flying saucers, everything black and white. It was hard to convey anything because everyone had their little idea of moon men. So like I said, it was groundbreaking, and it was the beginning of one of the best stories ever told. Obviously, it's not a lot can be faulted in it. Obviously, the characters are, you see, all the characters had such charisma. Luke, when you see Han Solo for the first time, he's chilling, he's leaning back, he shoots someone in the face. He's got a cool ship. He's got a big furry friend. He's wanted. And then the first time they jump in the light speed, and you're like, what the hell? That's awesome, And they come up on a giant space station the size of a moon.
Snow moon.
Snow moon. And even just the ship design, you've never seen anything like that before. Usually you just got a rocket ship, like I said, or a flying saucer, or some magic surfboard stand-up jet ski that Flash Gordon flies through space.
Yeah. Exactly.
And it was just and even the visual effects, like I said, the practical effects, all those things you saw, someone built with their hands. Mm-hmm. It wasn't. It was a model that someone. Even how did you get a model to move that smooth back then?
Yeah.
And even like in some of the scenes when they're coming onto like a Star Destroyer or the Death Star, and you see all the troops lined up. Those are lithographs. That's glass. Those are things painted on glass. Someone hand painted all those scenes.
That's crazy.
And it looks amazing,
Yep.
And just for those effects, just blow your mind. And even though it came out in 81, 82?
Was it 78?
70, I'm thinking, I'm sorry. 70, yeah. I wasn't even born yet. And I don't think I saw a Star Wars movie.
You weren't even born yet?
That's crazy.
Oh my God. That means nobody was.
I'm the first person.
Our grandparents have been born, but that's about it.
Except for the people that made Star Wars. I'm the first person.
Exactly. You were the world's first consumer.
They made it for me. I the first time I saw Star Wars, I was like 5 years old, man. And that's the first time I can, comprehend what was going on. And it just made such a huge impact, having all the toys growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Remember having, there wasn't many. I don't think there was a B-wing, and there wasn't a B-wing or an A-wing in A New Hope. But I remember having a giant B-wing, wings unfold, and the cockpit turned and everything. It was just amazing.
I've got an X-wing like right next to me right now.
Ooh,
it's pretty dope.
That's pretty
life size.
Yeah, life size. I'm gonna go to Dagobah real quick, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, very very well said, Jay. Oh, do you have more?
Nah, I was just say the impact that had, sticks with you for life. Look at the thoughts and obsession that we all have.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. And you, like you said, the rest of my top 3 is obviously the original trilogy also. So I think that shows, it's a testament to how good these freaking movies are. So except for Bobby, because Bobby's a millennial. But I'm sure I
like to change things up.
Do you want to guess what number 3 is?
It's got to be Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, you are correct, sir. So yeah, Return of the Jedi. a lot. It's funny because a lot of the reasons that you stated about Revenge of the Sith, Bobby, are
Mhm.
similar to this. It really is a culmination of an epic story about good versus evil and redemption and virtue and fighting against what is the easy,
Mhm.
not giving into the easy road. You see Luke struggle with the dark side. At the beginning of the movie, you see him really walking that line because he freaking force chokes a Gamorrean guard. Like
Mhm.
the light side users aren't supposed to do that, so you can tell that he was kind of,
Straddling the line for sure.
exactly. He was essentially a gray Jedi, but you can
He was
also
also
see
dressed in black, which is really unusual.
well exactly in A New Hope you see him wearing white, in Empire he's wearing gray, and in Return of the Jedi he's wearing black. So
Yep.
that's kind of the symbolism they're going for with showing him going towards that direction of becoming a dark side user. And once you find out that he is the son of Darth Vader, you're a little bit afraid of that for his character. But what really sells the movie is after the Battle of Endor starts, and which admittedly is late in the movie. But you get to see an epic space battle, which is up until this point the best one in the series. I think Rogue One kind of takes over that nowadays, but
Yeah, that was fun.
but
battle.
if you watch it now, it like still holds up. There's such great imagery, and it's a trap, and that's obviously a great a great quote. But not only that, just the Emperor's involvement in trying to corrupt Luke. You have Luke's resistance towards the dark side. You have him. You see his rage when he starts to defeat Darth Vader and he's overpowering him. You see him snap out of it, and you see his dedication to saving his father. It's all on an emotional level. It's all very, very well done, and I freaking love it. And the green lightsaber is awesome. I love that too.
Oh yeah, that was a nice addition.
When you go back to him raging over Vader, and then he stops.
Yeah.
Obviously, he sees what you said, but also he sees Darth Vader in himself. He's like,
Exactly.
I'm becoming that. He's looking in a mirror at that point.
Well, that's hinted at in Empire when he goes into the cave.
when he goes in the cave.
It's his biggest fear, and so he snaps out of it because he recognizes that that's the direction he's going, and that's all triggered by him cutting off Vader's hand and then being like, "Oh yeah, he did that to me.
That's
How-
me too.
Right.
I'm no different." So
Same.
there's a lot of same.
Same.
So there's a lot of really like there's great thematic points that are touched on in that movie. So that's why I have it as high as I do. So yeah, I mean, like I said, my top three are the original trilogy. Jay's are. So the rest two for you are the original trilogy, right, Bobby?
Yes, but not in the order that I think that you guys have them.
Well, we'll see. What do you have it to?
I've got Empire Strikes Back at number 2. Obviously, it's got the best twist of all time in movies with "No, I am your father." It's like just even like seeing that like as a kid, like that was such a huge surprise. It's like the main good guy. Like how is that even possible? Like it just as a kid, I could barely comprehend it. It just brings so much more to the table than just being some random villain. Which I think that's one of the big reasons why that movie's so good. There's a lot of great stuff about it. All the stuff with like Han and Leia, and then going to Cloud City and all that. I think their story is really good. And then Luke training and all that. It's just everything in that movie is just so good. The finale, where there is no real ending, they're just drifting in space, not sure what the next step is. Like it's the unknown is part of what makes that movie, or the ending of that movie, so amazing.
Right. What about you, Jay?
Yeah.
For number 2,
Sorry.
I have Return of the Jedi for me, number 2.
Okay.
Like you said, a lot of the same things you were saying about it, which made it number 3 for you. I just bumped it up a little higher. You have the same thing, redemption. I just wrote some of these notes down: perseverance and triumph of the light side over the dark. Like I said, you get to see, the two halves of Luke conflicted, fighting, and seeing which one takes over. You're not knowing, where it's going to end up. Is he going to be like his father? Is he going to hold out and, be the chosen one? and like I said, a lot of thematic effects that they do in this movie. Having half of Luke's face in light, half of it in dark during some scenes. You just the way they visually show the struggle that he's in, him being in all black. It just, I don't know. It just, like, that's it. That's what makes it number 2 for me. And it's going to always, and the culmination of everything at the end also, you kind of feel a sense of completion.
Yeah.
And you don't really expect the story to go any further, which is why I think we were surprised when we were going to get, Force Awakens. We're like, oh, where could they go from here? It kind of left what's going to happen. I thought
little did we know what was coming.
Yeah. So there was a resolve. There was a resolution almost.
Yeah.
And only qualms I have with it are little teddy bears fighting men with armor and technology. But even though I still like the Ewoks, I remember watching all the other Ewok specials as a kid, Battle for Endor and stuff like that.
Yeah, with that weird little rabbit.
The weird little rabbit. I remember the giant furry monster with the big floppy ears.
Yeah.
That one sticks with me. But I mean, just like I said, it was the end of a perfect ending for a perfect trilogy for me.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. I think that it doesn't necessarily mean that they couldn't go anywhere with that story, but it's so well done that it's like evil's defeated, the good guy won. You get to see the bad guy be redeemed, and you see all of his friends are together. It's like, it's very
it is pretty much
it's
a
very
ending.
Exactly, it's a happy ending.
And they did such a good job. You're like, oh, there's almost a power vacuum now. You don't get to think of that. You don't get to think of the consequences, but a lot of the extended universe will take over.
Well, this is a thing that I've discussed with Bobby before, where I was expecting to see that in the new trilogy. I was expecting to see fractures of the Empire fighting for control. Yeah. Apparently that stuff happens all off screen. We don't get to see it in the movies, but it did exist. But it's like, that would have been so cool to see. You have the First Order, but then you have like another faction of the Empire who's like, wait, we're still in control. You have Kylo trying to be the supreme ruler, but Snoke is too. But Snoke has another apprentice or whatever. Like, power struggle was not something that existed that should have in the new trilogy, I think.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But that's a big
you get
tangent.
to see that obviously in well, it's not extended, it's canon. The Aftermath series, the book series.
It's not Legends, yeah.
And I mean, even those books, I mean, I would have been happy to have that be the next trilogy, even though there's no Force users in it. I mean, they're really well written, and it's worth a read for anybody.
Yeah, for sure. So we were on number 2, right?
Yeah.
You want to guess what I had, Bobby, here, since you were so confident?
I'm gonna guess you had Solo. No, A New Hope.
Yep, A New Hope. This movie, you just got to think about the impact that it had on the movie world, on the cinematic world,
on the pop culture world, just in general.
Yeah, it's a phenomenon. The iconic characters that pretty much the entire cast is iconic. Isn't that crazy? You have Han Solo, Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, C-3PO, R2-D2, Darth Vader. They're all well-known household names. Isn't that that's freaking crazy?
It's absolutely insane. Like,
how do you bat 1,000?
Yeah.
The funniest thing about that is how, like, besides Harrison Ford, very few of those actors or actresses, became great actors or actresses.
Alec Guinness already had it established.
Well, what do you mean? Anthony Daniels was in
every Star Wars movie.
I mean, and Mark Hamill has had a definitely respectable.
He became a great voice actor.
Well, he's been doing that for so long. But yeah, I see what you're saying though. But yeah, then what Jay said, where it was like the first thing, the first time that any of this stuff was done, and the aesthetic of the whole, the whole world design, the ship design, was crazy. And then not only that, but in a similar way, which again, The Force Awakens kind of stole this, but they do kind of introduce plot threads that aren't resolved in the same movie. So at the time, there weren't a lot of sequels, especially for blockbusters in movies. so when they introduce the Jedi, and you're like, what the hell is that? And they say, the Clone Wars, and you're like, oh, okay. And they don't ever expand on this stuff. It's all just like these little. They're planting seeds on world building, which, like I said before, George Lucas is so freaking good at. So there's this sense of wonder when you're watching this movie, and all the different aliens and costume designs, and then you have a freaking cowboy and Han Solo in it, and it's like that makes it relatable, because it's like, okay, this is in space, but like these people are real, like regular people, under the crushing rule of a government system that isn't fair. So it's like it bridges so many gaps in terms of fantasy versus reality. So yeah, epic movie. And everyone, and the acting is a little bit cheesy, but when you watch this movie, like it really just doesn't matter. The rest of the stuff is just gold.
Right. Well, it's the ultimate hero's journey also for Luke. It's like there's other ones. There's like Bilbo Baggins. There's Frodo Baggins. But I like there's a ton of other ones. But it's like I feel like Luke's journey is the ultimate hero's journey. It's the kid from nowhere becoming this legendary figure. It's like the Matrix is the the modern version of the hero's journey, and it's just even that's just not as good as Luke's journey. It's just so you wanted to be Luke Skywalker, like of course you want, like some people want to be cooler and be Han, but it's like as a little kid, like I wanted to be Luke Skywalker and save everybody.
Yeah, you wanted a lightsaber, which is another thing, like one of the most, probably the most iconic weapon of all time. So it's just another point for A New Hope. Okay, so I think that's all well said. Did we get to your number 2, Bobby?
Oh yeah, we did Empire Strikes Back for number 2.
So let's go to number 1. I think anybody who's been paying attention knows what we got here. So why don't we just all say them?
We're talking about A New Hope here, so I'm just gonna go. Yeah. I got A New Hope. It's what started it all. I think it's the most entertaining story throughout. I think that like the cast that it had was so good together. The chemistry was damn near perfect. I just think it's just the most fun watch of pretty much any Star Wars movie, and I just think it's the best one.
Yeah. I mean, we kind of stole everything you probably could have said about this movie, but
it is what it is.
It's funny because Jay and I talked about it with such high esteem, and we have it at 2. So, Jay, should we try and synchronize this?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, 3, 2, 1. Empire
Strikes Back.
You were late.
You were early.
What the
hell? I arrived on time, as a wizard always does, or whatever the quote is. This isn't a revenge. What is it? Lord of the Rings discussion. We'll never do that.
Revenge of the Rings.
Anybody who's waiting for us to rank the Hobbit and Lord of the Rings movies, just move along. It'll never happen. Just kidding.
Are you incapable of doing it?
Am I incapable of anything, Jay?
Yes.
Okay,
join us next time for a Indiana Jones marathon or ranking.
Oh yeah,
with all 4 of them.
That'd be good, actually.
There's only 3 movies.
There's gonna be a 5th, and it's a continuation.
That's already better than the 4th one.
All right, so yeah, go ahead, Jay. Why do you have Empire at 1?
Empire, it's just more of, I think, it's beginning of what we get to see in Last Jedi with Luke. He's making his journey through the Force. He's almost impatient when he's on Dagobah. You kind of see the same, like maybe making mistakes and rushing things a little too quickly to try to get results. And then giving into a lot of what Yoda was warning him about, anger and hate and pain and suffering and sadness all lead to the dark side. But also at the same time, you get to see everyone else is in distress too. It ends on a sad note with Han Solo being frozen in carbonite and being taken off by the usurper, Boba Fett. No one got that.
When you say Boba Fett, I tune out.
I was honestly waiting for Bobby to say something. I was like, "Come on, Bobby, do it, do it."
I know how this goes when we talk about Boba Fett.
Well, Bobby, you bring up the point that Boba Fett talked back to Lord Vader, but Vader did nothing. Well, it's because Vader knew that Boba Fett was a nobody, and nothing needed to be done.
He's like, I'm not gonna waste my time.
How many people that worked for him did he kill for lesser things in that series? I'm just saying.
Yeah, but those were just bureaucrats. Nobody cares.
Those aren't bounty hunters.
No, bounty hunters have way more value. You can't just kill them off.
Yeah. Fair enough.
And and pardon me. And
we'll edit that out.
Yeah, we'll edit that out.
Now I have to leave it in. Damn it.
I'll leave it in. Take it out.
Okay.
It's like the bus in a James May special. Empire. I mean, honestly, I think that was the best made movie out of the three. It was the I want to say the climax, but the pinnacle. It was the halfway point. Obviously, it's the second act is probably going to be the one to have the most stuff happen in it. Exciting things. As far as acting goes, we got to see a lot of Darth Vader. We get to see a glimpse of the Emperor for the first time. Maybe not physically, but we hear his voice. And you just kind of get more of a feel of who Darth Vader is. You get a feel for more who all the characters are. It's been a while. It's been how long has it been since New Hope in timeline? It's been a year.
Yeah, it hasn't been too long.
Yeah, but you see how close all three of the main characters from the original New Hope are now. Obviously, Leia and Han are flirting, even almost more serious.
Scruffy-looking nerf herder.
What do you call him, Scruffy?
And then, and then Luke. Obviously, that starts off with Luke's in danger. And he's relying on people who aren't Force users, who aren't, the superhero, the chosen one. So he's you see how he's vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, you get that awesome scene of just the AT-ATs walking in to Hoth to destroy the generators. That was amazing. And even to go back to practical effects, that's what I think the strengths for all three of these movies are, is the practical effects just blow my mind.
Right. That's a great aspect of the original trilogy.
And and obviously it's setting up for Return of the Jedi. But I feel like this is the pinnacle of the three movies. It's the pinnacle of all of Star Wars. This movie was just well made, well directed, well acted by all of them. You see they've matured especially Leia and obviously Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill have matured in their acting chops. Obviously Mark Hamill looks different. That's why they had he had
a motorcycle accident, right?
Motorcycle accident. That's why they have him injured in the first, scene. To cover that up.
I heard that was a myth, actually, but
no, he really was in a motorcycle accident.
Oh yeah, he was, but I heard that scene was already written, but that's,
really?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's not that important to what your point is, but
and
it's just an interesting tidbit.
Yeah.
Also, we get we find out, obviously Bobby revealed, spoiler alert, that Darth Vader is Luke's father.
You've had
sorry guys.
You've had since 1981 to see this freaking movie. You should know.
Which, interesting note, I don't know if it's actually true. David Prost, the actual physical actor of Darth Vader, was thought to have leaked that fact during production, and now him and Lucasfilms are no longer on speaking terms, and he's not allowed to do Star Wars celebrations.
Yep. Well, that'll happen.
Poor guy.
Yeah.
Same with the guy who hit the stormtrooper who hit his head on the door. He's not allowed anywhere near Lucasfilm.
or door frames anywhere.
Yeah,
but that's all
speculation.
That's hearsay. That's rumor.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
Right.
Which is kind of fun.
You know what's funny about my general thought on trilogies and things like that? I generally like it more, the later films more, because everything, the chemistry gets better and things like that. But for some reason in this series, I really like how it starts more than the middle and the end. I feel like it's just a lot more interesting to see how they meet and how they come together than once they're together. I don't know why specifically this series, but it's just it completely goes against how I am in most other film franchises.
Yeah, it is a little bit odd because usually your favorite movie is the last one you've seen.
Just in general.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if it's a franchise or not. Like when we see Bond in the next couple months, it's gonna be your favorite movie at least until the next movie comes out.
Yeah. What was Bobby's last favorite movie? What did you see?
Rise of Skywalker.
Oh, it was Knives Out.
Oh yeah, Knives Out.
Hey, that's a very good movie.
Fantastic movie. I will
a divisive director.
Yeah, very. So yeah, I have Empire at 1 also. You know, great minds think alike. Jay, not Bobby. This
you have
movie...
to have a mind to be great. So.
Oh, jeez, got him.
Shots fired.
So with everything that A New Hope did, which was like just this explosive movie in terms of we're gonna give you so much stuff you've never freaking seen before, and like this world is so grand and mysterious, and you just want to know more about the world. Empire narrows that down to it's basically just a character movie. They're like all that other stuff that it was introduced, like we're going to expand a little bit on the Jedi stuff, but really this is about the characters' relationships with each other. That's why Darth Vader being Luke's father is such a huge and groundbreaking decision for them to have made, because it took, like Bobby said, it took like, not, I wouldn't say a generic villain in A New Hope, but he's very much like an automaton. He's a robot. He's a unstoppable force. You know, it's a lot of movies do that where it's just like this guy just does it because that's what he does. Like
Ronan from
Guardians
of the Galaxy.
Ronan, or the guy from Justice League, the gray blob thing.
Oh yeah,
that kind of character, and it said like, no, this guy has a connection with the hero that you're rooting for. And it's a connection that's way more complicated than even just someone he knew in the past. It's like his father that he never knew, and you don't really know why that's the case. All we know up until that point is that supposedly Darth Vader killed Luke's father. So just this huge emotional burden is put on Luke Skywalker, and he basically decides to kill himself at that point. And it's insane. You're watching a fantasy movie and you're seeing these like heavy subject matter,
heavy Shakespearean kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great way of putting it. And and not only that, I think that the Darth Maul versus Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan fight is the more physically interesting battle, but this movie, Empire Strikes Back, I think has the actual best lightsaber fight in terms of its weight. There's no score in it. It's just sound effects. It's just
that's a little jarring too.
It's all visceral.
Yeah.
Yes, that's super visceral. It's like Luke is like, he at this point, he doesn't know that it's his dad, and he just thinks that it's just this bad guy that he's supposed to kill, according to Yoda, which really fucked up by Yoda, by the way.
Yeah, definitely.
But so
that
he's just
deleted scene, right? That from Return of the Jedi, I think that came out just a few years ago.
Where
I think what was it? Maybe it was
like
Yoda talking to Obi-Wan about like how he wanted Obi-Wan not to tell him.
Oh yeah, I don't know about that actually. I'll have to look into that.
Special edition.
Yeah.
Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's just like that whole scene is crazy. Luke is just confronting something that he sees as pure evil, and then his world is just freaking destroyed after hearing that news. And that's obviously the most impactful scene of the whole movie. But there's other great stuff too, like the introduction of Lando.
Oh yeah, Lando's a great character too.
Yeah, super interesting character. I think just seeing more of Darth Vader as a person rather than a force is incredibly beneficial to the story. It's this movie, as far as I'm concerned, is a perfect movie. It's my all-time favorite movie. It's the best sequel of all time, in my opinion. It just does everything absolutely right. So that's why it's deserving of my number one spot.
It's hard to argue with that. I mean, I knew it'd be a little
don't do it.
Odd to do A New Hope first, but it's just most people. I would say probably at least 95% of people who are actual Star Wars fans would probably put Empire first. I get it.
I know a lot of people that have A New Hope at number one. So
what?
A lot of
those people are idiots.
Well, at least one of them is. So yeah, anybody have anything else to add about our list? Are you guys surprised by anybody else's spots?
No, I think
I am.
Who was going to be
Is it mine?
Yeah, Revenge of the Sith. You have it really high.
I have
you
it
have it.
third.
Yeah, and I guess it's not that bad. I have it at
emotional
5.
connection to it is why.
It's kind of funny because really 1 through 5, in my opinion, are good movies. Like my 1 through 5. So it's pretty cool seeing the majority as being good movies. People listening may disagree. So I think if you guys think one of our lists is better than the other, definitely let us know. Maybe give us your own list. Tell us we're stupid. We may be. At least 1/3 of us is. Revenge of the Sith
at least
3. What the?
Well, I don't know if this will blow your mind a little bit, but none of these movies is my favorite Star Wars movie.
Well, we'll get to that another time. So yeah, I think that kind of wraps it up. Let us know what you guys think in the comments. Let us know what you think about our list. Who had the best one? We aren't afraid to argue about that, as you can probably tell.
Speaking of, we're not afraid to argue. If anyone want to shout out or call me out on arguing about Boba Fett, I will do it all day.
I will argue with anyone online any day of the week.
catch him outside.
I will argue in person at Edwards Cinema.
But I will just say, no disintegration.
No disintegration.
All right, I guess that wraps it up. Until next time, thanks for joining us on NRDWave, the NRDWave Podcast. We're still working out our sign-offs.
Thanks
Bobby,
for catching the wave.
There you go. See you next time, guys.